All right, we're live, and I am Gavagai, and I'm joined by Naseer. Um, Naseer, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you kind of came across my interview and conversation with Super Muslim. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm interested in doing or having a conversation about religion," and
Yeah.
so that is what brought us together tonight.
Yes.
So, do you want to give a little introduction to yourself? I'm anybody that's watching this. I think most of the people in the community are familiar with me. So, and you can, after you introduce yourself, if you have questions for me, you can go ahead and ask some questions of me, and then I'll shoot back some questions at you. All right.
Okay. Hey guys. My name is Nasir. Last name is Shah, but I'm a Muslim and I am from New York. I guess that's a brief introduction.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
So, and your English is obviously very good. It sounds like English is your first language. Is that, am I wrong or?
No, second.
Oh, okay.
I came from. My originality is Pakistan. That's where I came from. So yeah.
Well, you've
I
been here.
guess
You've clearly been here for a while, or
11
studied
years.
some
Yeah.
before you came here, I guess, because
Yeah.
you sound like a native English speaker. So,
Yeah. 11 years of
okay,
America.
okay, sure,
Okay.
that'll do it. And you sound pretty young as well. Is that, am I wrong? I mean, you're
Um.
20-ish or less than that.
Yeah. 20.
Okay,
20.
right in there. Okay. Um, so so you you said you're Muslim. I am I am an atheist. I grew up in a Christian home, and I mentioned that just before we went live, and I guess you weren't aware of that necessarily. So I grew up in a fairly conservative, both from a religious standpoint as well as from a political standpoint, family. Um, and I was very devout in my faith. I attended church every week. I was active in the church. Um, I went to a Christian university when I graduated from high school. I married a Christian girl. Um, we had two sons and did our best to raise them as Christians as well. Um, I was kind of late um, finishing my school. We got married and had the kids before I finished my degree, and she finished hers first, and then I went back. So I was in my mid 30s or so when I finally got back to school and finished my degree. Not the path I recommend, by the way. So, um, but at any rate, as I went through school, I studied philosophy, and for a while I was able to maintain my faith, but eventually, kind of doubt and questions crept in. I found what I thought were inconsistencies in the Bible, and eventually it just came to a point where I realized, man, I just really don't believe this anymore. And uh, I asked myself, well, are there any other religions that sound credible to me? And I really didn't. At the time, I didn't think that there were, and I still haven't found anything that speaks to me on a level of truth, really, or rings true to me. So, but you said you were a Muslim.
Wait,
Um,
I kind of got disconnected,
oh,
like
okay,
a few seconds only.
okay.
Okay.
Uh, what, I don't
What was
know.
it?
Where did you
Like
get
a few
dropped?
seconds, like 3, 4 seconds. I
Okay.
just refreshed my page.
Ah, so, well, I was saying, I wasn't able to find any religions that did seem right to me, and I'm looking around, uh, didn't see anything that I thought was evidence of anything supernatural, really. And so my kind of fallback position was disbelief in really anything supernatural.
Yeah.
So that's where I've landed after some 30 years of belief. So what? Tell me a little bit about your faith and how you've come to where you are.
Okay. I am a born Muslim. I'm not in a really religious family, so I kind of had to, you know, go on my way to find the truth, basically seek the truth. So I started doing research about my religion, about other religion. I read the Bible. I went to church like last year for half of the month, like half of the year. I went to church almost every Sunday. Can you believe that? And I'm Muslim.
So you went to
Uh,
what kind of church did you go to?
it was like it was like a multi like there were Jews there and Christians.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it was pretty weird, but it was like everybody together, like Muslim, Jewish, and Christians. Yeah.
So what would you say is kind of the main reason or the
Reason I'm Muslim.
foundation for your belief in Islam?
I guess the book that I read, the Quran, every Muslim reads that. Um, it has the only reason I basically believe in it is because it has scientific miracles like that nobody could have. It was written 1400 years ago by Muhammad, peace be upon him, and I guess the miracles that are in there wouldn't have been found if it wasn't for the angel Gabriel. So I guess that's my belief.
Okay.
That's the reasoning.
So I don't know, where would you like to go with the conversation? I mean, do you want to? Are there any questions you would like to ask me, or do you want me to continue to ask you questions?
I guess we'll just go with the flow. I don't really have any questions in mind right now.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Um, do you identify as Sunni or Shia, or do you
I'm a Sunni. Yeah.
Sunni? Okay.
I really don't know any like difference. I just know that. Yeah. I don't want to falsify anything. So I'm just gonna keep quiet on that.
Sure. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. That's a point of curiosity for me when, um, and it almost seems odd to me the division, because it almost seems like it's based on like the
Same.
succession, right? And
Yeah.
but apart from the succession of the leader of the religion, its core tenets and things are essentially the same, are they not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like different nations, different tribes, and everything. It's just
Sure. Um, so what would you say are the key kind of do you hold to what are they, the 5 pillars or 4 pillars of Islam?
yeah.
Refresh me. What?
What are the 5 pillars of Islam?
Yeah.
I guess testimony of faith. Like you have to have firm faith. Prayer 5 times a day. You give zakat, which is you basically feed the poor. You support the poor. Support the ones that are in need. You fast in the month of Ramadan, and I guess once in your lifetime you have to visit Mecca.
That's the Hajj, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I know a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that's almost the extent. Unfortunately, I wish I knew more, but I just haven't dedicated time to studying all the different religions and things. I had a course on some Eastern religions, but Islam was not a part of that while I was in school, and I kind of wished at the time that it was. And I think later they offered a course on Islam, but it was kind of after I was
there's a
finished with
school
those
that
credits.
I go to college. So I'm first year, and there's a class about does God exist?
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it's really interesting. Like the amount of classes they give you, like different. It's pretty Nice.
So can I ask, what are you studying in school?
I am studying business
Oh, okay, that's
administration.
very
Yeah.
practical. I went
I didn't know what to do, so I just chose whatever it was.
when I first went to school right out of high school. I thought I was going to go and get a degree in education to become a teacher, and I had one practicum in my first semester, where you go into the school and work almost like a teacher's assistant a few times a week, and all the little kids running around, and oh man,
Ah, yeah, I
I was done.
understand.
I was like, nah, I don't think this is for me. And so so and I had quite a stretch. It was probably more than 10 years before I was able to get back, between my wife finishing her degree took a little while, and then we moved, and she started up on her career, and then finally I decided, oh, it's time, I'm going to go back and finish my degree.
Yeah.
And so when I initially went back, I thought, well, I was going to major in marketing, because that was something that interested me. I felt like I had a creative flair, and really always enjoyed watching and giving some analysis of commercials that I was seeing, and just different advertising campaigns and things. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's great. But then when I got into the university and saw the curriculum, it was 30 credit hours of marketing and advertising, but on top of that, 50 credit hours of business management,
Oh,
which really didn't interest me at all. And I, you couldn't do one without the other, uh, according to their degree plan. So I decided, I had taken one course of ethics in a philosophy that was part of the required core curriculum, and I just loved it. I ate it up. How to know what is good and what is right and what is just, and all of the different theories, and back and forth, and criticisms of the theories, and uh, I couldn't get enough. And I aced the class, and I said, I'm going to major in philosophy. And my wife thought I was completely mad, but it's worked out okay. So I minored in marketing and majored in philosophy. So
nice.
yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's nothing that I would have ever predicted, have been able to predict growing up. But so so what would you say, um, if you had to put your faith on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 means that you have all doubt and you don't believe really at all, and 100 is that you have absolute confidence that your religious beliefs are true. Where would you kind of
Um,
place yourself?
I I I don't want to sound too cheesy, but I'd say 10. From what I from what I from what I saw, like the scientific miracles, the pure evidence that God exists and that Islam is the right religion. And on top of that, we only live, I guess, 20 years if you calculate everything. Like if you calculate the sleep, if you calculate what do you call it, work, school. You take all of that out, you're only living a few years. You know what I'm saying? So I guess this life is nothing. It's temporary. Everything in this world is temporary. So I guess I have to stay at a firm belief. You
So,
know?
but did you assign a numeric value to it, like from 1 to 100,
Yeah.
or 0 to 100?
No, no. I put a 10, a
A,
100.
oh, okay, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay, you're at the 100 mark. Have you
Yes.
always been at the 100 mark there?
No. No.
No.
I had a few questions, and then I went to an imam, like the person that memorized the whole Quran, that
Sure.
memorized, that understands Islam. So I asked him those questions, and he cleared me up.
Um, so one of the things that, um, as when I was a believer, and even now interacting on Google Plus with people who are devout in their Christian faith. I run across people frequently who will tell me things similar to what your imam told you about the Quran, but they are telling me that this is true of the Bible. So, for example, uh, the in the book of Genesis, um, the character Jacob goes out and puts um, there's the whole narrative. I forget exactly what it is, but he's kind of splitting up flocks with his uncle um, Lot, I believe, and the way that they're dividing the flocks of sheep or whatever it is was by the striped and kind of quote unquote blemished um, cattle or livestock would go to Jacob, and the ones that were had white coats or were not blemished, or streaked, or spotted, or anything. Those would go to the uncle Lot, and so Jacob kind of did this trick where he took branches from three different kinds of bushes and stripped them so that they had like stripes on the bark, and put them either in the watering troughs or next to it or something. It's not real super clear, but and then the livestock came down to drink, and they mated, and the offspring from those livestock had stripes and speckles and things, so that when they were reproducing, all of those the offspring would go to Jacob rather than to his uncle. And so it was kind of a like a trick of cheating his uncle
Yeah.
out of getting all of the livestock offspring. But so people, critics of the Bible who have looked at that story have said, well, that really doesn't have any scientific basis. And I've been engaging with there's one Google Plus user who goes by the name of Jay Wing, who's insisting that the Bible is 100% scientifically sound. And
Bro, did you?
go ahead.
Yeah. Did you know? I was doing my research like a few weeks ago, and when I was doing the research, I found out there was a place where it said there are 30,000 and counting errors and contradictions in the Bible.
Well,
It was mind blowing, bro. Like I didn't believe it. So when I started, looking into it,
right. Well,
it
but
was,
and I've never tried to count, but from my experience and what I've seen, I believe that there are many. And
yeah.
but this guy, if you ask him, he will insist, no, there are none. There are no errors. There are
There,
no
there's a guy.
contradictions.
Do you know Dr. Zakir Naik? He
No.
memorized the whole Quran. He memorized the whole Bible. He memorized the Jewish and the Hindu scriptures. So he basically have everything in his head. So when there's somebody like a Christian scholar, like trying to have an argument with him or a debate, like Zakir Naik will demolish him. Like it's unbelievable. You should search him up one day.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up. What was his name again?
Uh, let me just message you. Zakir Naik.
With a Z?
Yeah, Dr. Zakir Naik. You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was basically one of the main reasons why I'm, closer to Islam than I've ever been.
Sure. So, but what I was getting at with this unfortunately long story now was that if let's say I was a young person who went to Jay Wing's church, and I said, well, I'm struggling. I'm not sure I buy into the idea that the Bible is 100% true. Well, Jay Wing would be there, hammering out all of these reasons that he thinks that the Bible is true. And so for example, this particular story about Jacob and breeding animals with stripes by putting these branches in the water, he came up with some scientific study, and it was a legitimate scientific study
Wow.
that tested animals' diets while the mothers are pregnant with the animals, and they specifically tested mice and the weight of the animals, and the overall health was affected by the diet, and also the fur color. So he was saying, well, this is clear evidence that the Bible is 100% true. That was the
No,
conclusion that
it
he
says
drew.
that Muslims believe that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the only difference that we have is that we believe some parts of the Bible are true,
Sure.
because throughout the years the Bible has been changed a lot. So the beginning words of the Bible isn't the same as the Bible that you see today. You
Right.
understand? That's what I've been fed up. I mean,
So, but and as somebody who I agree with you about the Bible, and but if you were only to go to Jay Wing and he was the only source that you were to listen to,
yeah,
um, you might get the impression, well, and he, even after I've showed him, I said, well, look, that scientific study didn't test cattle, it didn't test sheep, and it didn't test these three kinds of things, and it also didn't test them only at the moment of conception, because that's what the story says. So this this scientific study tested something else. You don't
yeah,
have confirmation of or verification of this Bible story from that. And there's a long list of things we've been going back and forth for months now, where I've talked to him about the Star of Bethlehem that supposedly the wise men followed to Jesus, baby Jesus in the manger or whatever.
yeah,
The wise men supposedly came from the east and they saw the star in the east. Well, if they're traveling from east to west to get to Bethlehem and the star is in the east, the star would be behind them, for one thing. And for another thing, every night, all the stars in the sky also rise in the east, travel across the sky, and set in the west, just like the sun
yeah,
and the moon, because that motion is generated by the Earth turning on its axis.
yeah,
So how could a star possibly point to one city? I mean, any more than like the sun or the moon or any star in the sky any night could point to one city. It just doesn't make any sense. And
yeah.
anybody that's studied, any astronomy would be able to clue in on these things. But Jay Wing will say, well, no, they saw the star in the east because they were in the east, and when they looked up, the star was also in the east where they were. So he's giving all of these clarifications to kind of justify how it's not a mistake. But on reading it on its face, it's either really poorly written or it's a mistake. So I'm wondering, for example, do you think that there might be, or at least that it's a possibility, that some of that same kind of justification and rationalization of some parts of the Quran might have happened with the Imam?
You're saying, like, the errors. That's what you're trying to say.
Well, or
Like
so that
the Imam not believing.
so his explanations of things being quote unquote scientific might be based on kind of a biased view of it, where he's rationalizing and giving explanations of things that don't have real justification from the text
Yeah.
or real justification from science.
Yeah. Um, I really don't have that much knowledge, so I wouldn't consider myself an imam myself, or a person that knows about the Quran or the Bible. But you know, through my teachings, like the things that I was taught, I guess, um, There was something that I read on in the Quran. Can I just show it to you? Like,
Sure.
let me search it up. God uh, clearly said, he's like, in the Quran, he said that there will not be any single contradiction nor an error in the Quran, the whole of Quran. There will not be one single contradiction or error. So I guess till today, nobody have found out any, like, not even one error in the Quran, the whole Quran.
Right, but again, if you go to devout Muslims who are defending the Quran, and that's
Yeah.
what they're telling you, that's what you're going to hear.
No, 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 no. That I don't. I hardly know any Muslims, bro. Like
Okay,
I do the research myself. Like,
so have you looked at like some of the things that critics have said? Because I know there are people who believe very firmly that there are errors and contradictions and things in the Quran.
um, I would if I guess that's one of the main reasons why I'm into it. I've never really seen any error in the
Okay.
Quran, so
Um, so
I
like
guess I want to know how I would react. You know?
so one of the things that I've seen, and again, I'm not a scholar in Islam. Obviously,
No, no,
I've
it's not.
never, I couldn't tell you the structure of it, how it's set up. But I know there are like divisions within the Quran, and somewhat similar to how there are books in the Bible and things. But I, that's about it. And I know there are verses that are marked by kind of chapter and verse as
Mm.
well. But so there's a passage in the Quran that talks about where the sun sets, um, and it says that it sets in a muddy pool. So it's as if the sun is going sinking down into the earth rather than out in space somewhere. Which, you know, if you were living in a land and didn't have full idea of the full geography of the whole planet, you could easily see that, you know, it looks like the sun is sinking down into the horizon, and if, you know, the Earth stretched on beyond that, then that's where the sun would be sinking into the Earth. But
Yeah.
it's clearly not scientifically supported, right?
Um, I never really heard about that. Let me.
I can give you a textual
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, sure.
reference here. Let me pull it up real quick. Um, let me see. I should have had this ready. Okay, here we go. So this is just from a wiki page, but Quran chapter 18, verse 86, and it says, "Till when he reached the setting place of the sun, he found it setting in a muddy spring, and found people thereabout." And we said something that I don't even know how to pronounce, and I don't want to try, but it's some kind of exclamation, I guess. Either punish or show them kindness. Till he reached the place of the rising sun, when he found it rising on a people for whom we had appointed no shelter therefrom. So, and that's Quran 1886 and Quran 1890. And I can give you, I'll share the link in the
Yeah, I got it. I
chat
got it.
here.
I
Oh,
see
you
it.
got it? Okay.
So when you reach the setting of the sun.
So, and then there's like shooting stars that are thought to be missiles being shot at devils. Verily, we have beautified the world's heaven with stars or lamps, and we have made them missiles for devils. and for them we've prepared the doom of flame. I don't know what. So some of the language is so confusing to me. I don't even know how anybody
Yeah. Yeah.
understands what's going on. Maybe in context, it's clear, more clear.
Yeah.
But
It's just I don't speak Arabic, so I'm like on your page right now.
yeah, yeah, and that's the
But
other thing, right? So
no, I don't understand it. I read it and I can write, but I don't understand it.
okay, okay, yeah. Well, and but to me, if I were a deity who had a message for the entire world, and I wanted everybody to get this message, I don't think giving it to a small group in the middle of the desert, and in an ancient language. I mean, obviously, it wasn't ancient at the time, but uh, it's certainly ancient today. That would be the most
No, but then
efficient way.
you have to realize that there are 1.8 billion Muslims now,
Sure.
and everybody in the world knows about Islam. And I saw a Google search. It said in 2050, around there, Islam is going to be dominant religion. Can you believe that?
Well, I mean,
It's,
I don't know.
so I, you know, I don't know.
What? But if this is an all-powerful being, why couldn't he have given the message? Really, I mean, he could have given it to every culture and given
No,
it
he did. He
to.
did. He, God, I don't want to refer to him as a he, but God, he, from the time of Adam, he gave out messages. It started from Adam. Muhammad is the last messenger, last and final messenger.
Okay.
And after him, that's when everything began. That's when modern days began, if you can say so. So I guess yeah. I
Right,
really
but
don't know.
we not everybody received it at the same time. So like you have people living in the Americas, in North America and South America and Asia, in the Pacific and uh, Australia, and all of these different cultures and people spread around the world, and in Europe as well, had no clue that any of this stuff was going on in the Middle East with regard to uh, the Jewish culture or the Muslim culture for tens of thousands of years,
Yeah.
and but what if all of these people had been given that same message, and then it was an identical message in their
No, but then
native language?
it's not a a test anymore. Then you just then where's the test if everybody got the same? It took Muhammad 30 years to basically finish the whole Quran. 30 years. So it wasn't like 30 days. It was 30 years.
Well, so give it to one or more people. Why not give it to have
None of his. I guess his job was to spread it. It's supposed to be a natural spread. It's not supposed to be a. If everybody got it, then what's the point of the test?
why make a test? What's the purpose of the test?
We chose to do it. When God created us, He asked us. He asked us if we want to be angels or if we want to have free will. The angels stay in heaven for eternal life, but they don't have free will. But the humans, they have free will, but they can either, when they go into Earth, they either go to heaven or hell. So me and you, I guess we chose to be humans. We chose to come into the to have a test.
So Do you said you clearly believe in angels? Do you believe in devils
Uh,
or demons?
I guess. I don't know. I guess, yeah.
And then what about? I guess there's a kind of a third category in Islam called jinn.
Yeah. Those are like, I guess, the deep. I don't know too much. It's like, I think they're either demons or ghosts. I'm not sure.
Okay, I've heard someone use the word like goblins, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. But there's something, not angels, not necessarily demons or something. So where did demons come from, or devils in Islam?
Uh,
Do
I
you know?
have no idea, bro.
Okay,
No.
I was going to say, in Christian theology, the devils are angels that uh, rebelled against their God, and they went with, what is it, Lucifer, I guess, was the kind of the chief angel, um, and and something supposedly, some of this is not very clear in the Bible, and some of it comes from the Book of Revelation, which is their kind of apocalyptic book. But like, supposedly a third of the angels broke away from their God and rebelled. And
No, no, no. I think I know. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna be like 100% right. So
sure.
this is what I think. Um, Jin is basically the guy that I guess when God told him to, I think he had free will, but God told him to bow down. You know how the Muslims when they pray they bow down.
Hmm.
God told him to do that, and for the first time ever, he said no, and he said, I guess he said no, and then God turned him into the worst creation ever.
Hmm.
And yeah, so he made a promise. He said that he will, when God put him into earth, he said that he will get so many, the wrong things that we do, like, wash dirty stuff. We use our eyes for bad stuff. We use our ears for bad stuff. Certain things like that. That's basically the jinn telling us to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah,
Interesting. I always just find these different things
yeah.
interesting. Like in Japan, the Shinto religion has what they call kami, which are like supposedly these nature spirits that are in rivers and forests and things. Um, and I don't know. Apparently, they kind of do stuff sometimes that's supposed to affect the real, the world that we can see and interact with. But for the most part, they just kind of live in this spirit realm or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and in China, they have ancestors that they ask for help from, and the ancestors sometimes can help them out, supposedly. Um, but
Yeah.
so from my perspective, is there any way for me to know that, for example, that jinn are real, but that kami or ancestor spirits are not real? Is there any way to
Uh,
test that, or figure that out?
uh, I guess no, in at least in my perspective. But the videos that I've seen, like on YouTube and stuff, I haven't really seen it in real life. But the videos that I've seen, where these people they have jinns inside them. I guess. Like, have you seen any videos like that?
Well, I've seen.
I guess
I'm much more
that's
exposed to
my
the
way.
Christian side, and most of the time, if there's quote unquote spirit inside of people, Christians will say it's a demon. Um, you know, but
Yeah.
I can't tell the difference between somebody that's putting on an act, or
Yeah. Yeah.
potentially somebody that's
Yeah.
mentally
Right.
disturbed and has a psychological disorder, and what is alleged to be a demon or perhaps a jinn. I don't know.
Yeah, I've
But I
never
suspect
really.
that, yeah, I suspect that if you brought the same person to a Christian, like a Catholic priest or a Pentecostal minister, they might say that is demon possessed, and if you brought him to an imam, it might say that the same person has a jinn inside them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. How would you determine which was right?
If it
And
was a yeah,
go ahead.
if it was like my close, a relative or a family member or a close friend, if that person is pulling out that act, then I guess I would have to believe that it's if he tells me, afterwards, if he tells me that it's a jinn or whatever it is, then I would believe. But it never really happened to me or to any of my close relatives, so yes, I can't really, I can't really understand. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Do you think that people can sometimes fool themselves into believing something when it's maybe not accurate or true?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. It's all over. Yeah.
I grew up in a church that was what they call Pentecostal. Are you familiar with Pentecostal Christianity?
No.
So, in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, it describes a group of people that gathered after the resurrection of Jesus, and they prayed for, I think it was like 40 days and 40 nights together, some extended period of time, anyways,
Yeah.
waiting for the Holy Spirit, and I'm using air quotes around that. Um, and the spirit of the Christian God supposedly came into
Stop.
the
Stop. Stop.
room like a big strong wind, and there were little like flame.
Stop.
Oh,
Oh, it's my little freaking brother, bro. You have any siblings?
I do. I have, but mine
He's
are all
yelling
grown.
so much. You can't even hear me. Okay, yeah, go on.
But anyways, the people in this room in the Bible spoke in what they called other tongues, and the church that I went to believed that this is still something that happens today, that people can speak in other languages if they pray long and hard enough and ask for what they called the baptism in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I believed that I had for a while. And really, what now in hindsight, what I think was happening was that I was just making gibberish syllables, and that I had convinced myself that something supernatural was going on, and really I was trying to fit in because other people were saying this is a good thing, you should do this, and that I wanted to know if it was real, and I did my best, and in the end, I think what I ended up doing is just kind of faking it um, because I wanted it so much,
Yeah.
and I can't say that every single person that quote unquote speaks in tongues is doing that, but that was my experience. So
Yeah.
and I wonder sometimes, some of the people that come out and say, well, they're possessed by a spirit or something, if they might um, be seeking attention. In some cases, I think they might have mental disorders and might have benefited from a psychologist or psychiatrist who give them medication if they've are hearing voices or things like that it can be maybe schizophrenia or something. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Y- I wouldn't. I mean, if I seen it in real life, I don't know how I would react. If it happened to me, like if a close relative went into that state,
mhm.
and I guess since it never really happened to me, it never really occurred in my life, I wouldn't. I don't know how to react to it.
Yeah, yeah, well, and ultimately, with we live in a time when everybody has video cameras on their phones and can take photos and things, but there's never any real like photos of these things, and maybe that would be impossible. I don't know, but ultimately, all that you really see is a person sometimes yelling or causing a fuss or acting funny, but it's still a human being that's doing all of these things. And
Yeah.
I've never seen a human being. You see these in the movies, the person's like climbing up the walls and things,
Yeah.
but that's not what
No,
happens.
but then I kind of, there's a scenario where, sleepwalking. That's one of the examples.
Okay.
And when one day I was sleepwalking, I went outside. I, bro, one day, normal day, I just started walking outside, and then when I woke up, I realized, I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? What's going on? So I guess that's one of the tiny reasons to believe in that, I guess, at least to me.
Hmm. So, well, so we've gone almost an hour. Do you want to go a little bit longer, or
I know, I really don't mind. It's
okay?
up to you.
Well, let me ask you one more thing, and then I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up for tonight.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed our conversation, by the way. You're fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Um, so, thinking back to that scale of 0 to 100, is there anything that you think might cause you to doubt or move down on that scale if you saw some kind of evidence or something that
That proves.
well, I don't know what proof. To me, you wouldn't be able to find proof that there's no God, because
Yeah, of
just
course.
like
Yeah.
what would you look for to find proof of no Bigfoot, right? I mean, now
Yeah.
Bigfoot's a different kind of thing, obviously, but still, it's the fact that there's no solid evidence for Bigfoot. People find tufts of fur or footprints, but anytime that scientists or biologists investigate those things, it turns out to be the fur from some other creature
Yeah.
or a faked footprint or whatever. It's just not good evidence, and so we're left to say, I don't think that there's a Bigfoot, and there's not good evidence for it. But you couldn't say this is evidence that Bigfoot doesn't exist, because what would that be?
Yeah.
It's the lack of evidence,
It's
right?
like you wouldn't know whether it exists or it doesn't exist. So like stuck in
Yeah,
between.
right, right. But you can maybe move from firm confidence that for certain that something is true, and then start to doubt and
Yeah.
question, which would be comparative to moving down on that scale.
Yeah.
Do you think what might you experience or see that might cause you to question or doubt?
Uh, I guess an error. Um, if there's something wrong in the Quran, I don't know. Yeah, it would probably be an error,
Okay,
like a
okay,
simple error. Yeah.
all right. Well, and I think that if you will look, I would. Here's what I would do if I was you. I would look to see what Muslims have said, or maybe secular scholars have said are errors in the Bible, and then look to see what the Christian apologists, have said in response to those criticisms.
Yeah.
Then look back to criticisms of the Quran from secular sources or even Christian sources. There was one website I just pulled up when I was looking for that passage about the sun setting in the muddy place. That was
Yeah.
a Christian website that I first pulled up, um, and then look to see what the imams or Muslim scholars have said in response to it, and see, ask yourself, which side makes a stronger case about what's being said here, and try
Yeah.
to approach it with an objective mindset, um, to find out what's true and what's not.
Yeah. But what I usually most like I said before, I usually look at the scientific miracles. Do you know any scientific miracles in the Quran?
I've heard that people talk about, for example, the embryology.
Yeah,
That's one that I've heard a number of times.
yeah.
Um, the question I would say, or the response that I would have in response to that is, well, how do we know about embryology today? Um, we know about it because we've seen, aborted fetuses. We've seen
No, no,
women.
no. It was actually no. In the Quran, it talks briefly about like the inside of a human's, a mother's womb. It talks like step by step. So in order for scientists to actually figure that out is by having, what is that scope called? I'm not sure what it is. Um,
Yeah,
forget.
I know what you're talking about,
Yeah,
where the sonogram kind of thing.
yeah,
Well, but that's before that was ever invented. We knew about the development of fetuses in humans and other animals too, because there are miscarriages from almost day one until the very end all the
yeah,
time, and so we have access to seeing these different stages of fetal development because things go wrong, and babies get even spontaneously aborted um, all the time. In fact, I've seen numbers that say 2/3 of every fertilized egg get spontaneously aborted just due to natural causes and things.
yeah.
So it's not like that wasn't the case back then, and in fact, probably today there's lower numbers of spontaneous abortions than there were back then because we have prenatal care that's better. People have better diets, have access to better nutrition and things, and
Yeah.
we're able to identify earlier in the pregnancy when the woman is pregnant. So
I guess that's mainly that's one of the miracles, but if you were to look deeper, there are like, I guess, hundreds of other miracles that there was no way 1400 years ago that a person like that, the person that couldn't read nor write, you know, come up with a miracle as such.
mhm.
Like
Maybe.
the spreading of the universe, like how the universe is spreading, like it's getting bigger. That how can a person that couldn't read nor write from 1400 years ago find that? How does he know?
Well, what did it exactly say? I mean, that's the
Um,
question. Because, like in the Bible, it says that the sky spreads out, but I mean, I think it's just talking about how when you look up, it's spread all around, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that the three-dimensional universe is expanding, right? There's a difference between those two. Or somebody could say that if you go into a large domed chapel or building, and the dome spreads, right? But that doesn't mean that the
oh, there
building
was there
is.
was one thing that like really crossed my mind, like it was unbelievable. When Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was writing the Quran, there weren't numbers. There weren't, each sentence, each paragraph weren't set as numbers.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't know what number one, you wouldn't know what number 10 was, the 10th verse. You wouldn't know what the 11th surah was. You understand what I'm trying to say? So in the earth, the middle part of the earth, it's made up of iron, right? So that's what scientists recently figured that out.
Okay.
It's made of iron. So when you look into the Quran, um, when there are 114 chapters in the Quran, and when you divide that by two, when you go in the middle of the Quran, the 57th chapter, the name of that chapter is iron. So
Okay.
that, yeah, I saw that last week. It blew my mind.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, to me that, I mean, that could easily be coincidence,
No,
and
but it's not. That's one of the coincidences, bro. Like,
right.
it's so many others.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I've heard is that um, there are 70% of, looking at the just the words land and water, that water is said, however many times more than the word land, and that the proportions of those two words are equal to the proportions of land to water in, on the earth. And someone has said, well, you know that's a miraculous thing or whatever. I mean, one, I don't know if that's accurate. I mean, unless you would go through and count that yourself. But two, that's the percentage of land to water is also a changing, or at least potentially changing, and dynamic thing, right? So, like, for example, if we have global climate change and the ice caps melt, um, the the sea levels will rise, and
Yeah,
we could potentially shift that um, uh, ratio so that there's more water and less land. So does that mean that ratio for the Quran is then in error, or is it only important that it's true for now? So,
yeah, yeah. I
and
understand what you're saying.
if scientists, let's say, they came about some new evidence that really the core of the Earth was not iron, but maybe it's lead.
No, but the
They've
thing is,
discovered this.
they the thing is that they haven't yet came up with it.
Yeah.
So
Well, they haven't yet, but
yeah,
would that mean and I don't think that that's
yeah. Of course, yeah.
probably going to be the case, right?
If
But
there is an
you know,
if there is an error, like the when they prove a certain place in the Quran wrong, then obviously the whole book should be questioned.
well,
You know,
but for that example, because this chapter is called iron and it happens to fall numerically in the middle, right?
yeah,
To me, that's not a good reason to believe or disbelieve. It's just, it's there, and okay, so there's the center of the earth is iron. Big deal. Or if the center of the earth turned out to be lead, that doesn't mean you shouldn't believe the rest of the
no, yeah, of
content.
course.
And it's
It
not
should
that
be it should be
Muhammad
questioned.
didn't say, I'm putting this in the middle because the core of the earth is made of iron, right? That would
No,
be a
no, no.
problem.
That's how. No, it's not. It's not because of that. It's just like how precise the Quran is. That's basically the message of it. Like how.
Well, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, if to me that just is not a very strong argument, that particular one. And to me, like the embryos thing, I can explain that through natural, just by observing what has gone wrong in embryonic development when women have abortions, and somebody goes over there and looks and says, oh yeah,
No, no,
there
no.
was a
But the thing is, you have to have that scope. I'm not sure what it is called, but
you don't it
it's
comes
no,
out of
no.
the woman.
Humans 1,400 years ago didn't have the capacity to understand. They didn't have the knowledge to
A
understand.
100 years ago, they didn't have those
Yeah, they recently came up with it.
sonograms, but they knew before the sonogram what was happening with embryonic development. They had the aborted fetuses in jars, and in museums and in scientific, doctors' offices, and researchers and things. These are tangible things that people can get a hold of when women have miscarriages and things.
Yeah,
So it's not like that wouldn't have been available 1,400 years ago to examine a miscarriage uh,
yeah.
that's been expelled from a woman's womb.
Yeah, it's not the. I guess yeah, you're right at that certain place, but
Yeah,
you know, it's not just those two, the ones that I told you about.
sure.
It's like it talks about the mountain, about the moon having a split. Science, people couldn't have figured that out a long time ago, but now they recently figured that out. There is a split in the moon.
Hmm.
The rain, how the rain comes out of the sea. What is it called? The rain cycle.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
water
it talks
cycle.
about that. Yeah, it's a lot, bro.
Well, again, uh, I would encourage you, look at what the Muslim scholars have to say for sure.
Yeah,
I've looked into that some too, but don't just look there, because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
if
of
you
course,
really
yeah,
want to know, is this legitimate? Look at the critics too, because otherwise you're only getting one side, and that side is really interested in seeing you believe more than they are in seeing you take all of the information and and make an objective decision on your own.
yeah,
Just like that Jay Wing guy that I was talking about. In fact, he told me, well, you spend so much time trying to disprove the Bible. Why don't you spend more time trying to prove the Bible? And I
yeah,
said, well, I'm not trying to disprove the Bible. I'm pointing to things that I think are problems. And if you have answers, I'm okay. I'm open to that. But I'm not satisfied with the answers that you provided so far. And I'm just looking at the evidence and trying to make up my mind about it. So,
yeah.
um,
I
I,
was, I hang out with a lot of Christians, so having firm faith that it's, Christianity is, you know, it wouldn't even cross my mind, like it being the true religion based on um, the Bible having errors and contradictions. Uh, Jesus being the Son of God, because that, to me, it doesn't really make any sense.
no, yeah,
So I guess Islam, yeah, you're right. I have to question it, not just by the imams and the Muslim scholars, but I have to go outside of the box.
yeah. Well, and it sounds like you're open and willing to question, and I certainly salute that. And if you come out, you come out and say, "Hey, I've looked into it. I'm still convinced." Hey, more power to you, and I
Yeah,
certainly respect that. Um, so, but I think I'm gonna call it a night,
yeah,
and I have had a very pleasant conversation with you. Welcome to the community. I hope that you can get plugged in. Look through the list of people that are in my circles, and add them and look at some of the stuff that I post too, and jump in.
yeah. Whatever. Okay.
You'll be very welcome. We are interested in pulling in people of different faiths and things. So uh, welcome aboard.
Yeah, I definitely. I'll check it out.
All right. Have a good night, man.
Okay. Yeah, you too,
Good
bro.
to meet you.